listener production.
I'm automotive commentator and journalist Greg Rust, and this is Rusty's Garage. In this episode, I'm in Auckland getting ready to work on a fundraising initiative with Scott McLaughlin. He's a proud ambassador for Kart Sport New Zealand and is big on trying to help young Kiwis in karting. McLaughlin is fast becoming a major sports star on both sides of the ditch, a good bloke who enjoys a laugh with the kind of talent behind the wheel that has been likened to the great Craig Lowndes. 2018 was redemption for McLaughlin after just missing out on the Supercars Championship the year before. The title has been a lifelong dream of his, and he celebrated in style. Our chat basically charts his path leading up to the drama-filled deciding round, just days before he would be crowned champion. It's a path that began with fond memories of cars in the family garage when he was a little tacker.
We're always a bit of a Holden family because of Greg Murphy, so it was always a club sport or GTS in there. So, actually I remember though, we got an SV99, a Holden SV99 back in the day. It was obviously 99 made, Hackett Gold for it was a special Olympics promotional thing. So for the Olympics in 2000, so it was very cool.
Were you one of those kids that was obsessed with model cars, toy cars? Did it just kind of consume your life back then?
I had two Holden racing team, I think they were 99 little model cars. I used to race around. They were Lowndes and Scafie, and I used to run around with them, just doing car noises and whatever. But I did that a lot.
The first foray, like probably most races, would have been two wheels. Was it sort of BMX bikes and things like that? Did you lose some bark? How did you go?
I lose plenty. I actually didn't do motorbikes as such, but I used to remember being in the garage. We had quite a big basement type thing, so I'd make myself a little track and pretend I was like McDowan or Rossi or someone like that, and drop the knee, and sometimes I'd go a bit too far because the basement floors were quite slippery. So she was a bit dangerous.
You were very good though. I've done a little bit of research for this, and this person, let's just call her Sammy, who may or may not be your sister, tells me that you were very keen to help her get off training wheels, and you were quite passionate about helping her in that regard, and you were called into the house, I think maybe for, like bath time. You might have been 6 or 7. She continued to press on and she had success. She got off training wheels. What happened next?
I just walked out Starkers, mate, and it was just like stuff, and I was riding my bike too, so there's video evidence of it too, but you don't want to see it.
I love it. Okay, proud Kiwi, obviously, mate. Motor racing here is your life, but rugby could have been something for you at one point. Could we have been barracking maybe for Scott McLaughlin, the All Black? Or
I don't know if it would have been All Black, but I definitely was in the rugby academy at my school. I was captain of the rugby team as well, and certainly came through the ranks there, but I got to a point where I had to choose one or the other, and I didn't want to get injured, so basically pulled it in at rugby and pressed on with the racing thing, thankfully. I was first off, I started as a hooker, rugby union, and then I got a little bit bigger, so taller and a little bit skinnier. So I started number 8. I was number 8 there for a while, and we played pretty well. But whether I would have made it all the way, I don't think so. But look, it would have been interesting.
So how did the door open? I mean, I know your dad was president at the Hamilton Car Club, I want to say, and things like that. How did the door first open for you to get into karting? What was that first experience like? Can you remember it?
Yeah, I remember going to the Hamilton Car Show at the Hamilton Showgrounds in New Zealand, and we saw that there was a Hamilton Car Club stand there. And we met a guy named Zoltan, and he had a sheet. He was working for the club, whatever, and basically said, tomorrow we're going to have a go day. And we were looking at the karts, and I was only 6 years old at the time, and you'd try anything when you're that age. And I saw the kart, said, Dad, can we have a crack? And Mum and Dad had raced before I was born, so Dad's like, we used to race this, and obviously I just wanted to emulate what Dad did. Next day had a drive, and rest is history. We actually bought the kart on the day, and the kart that we'd start racing with, and he rolled it out of the trailer and it had number 33 on it. And that was my number when I first started racing with, and then I first had it in V8 Supercars when I first started in Supercars, which was very special.
Very cool. It became a trademark, certainly in your early years there, mate. Am I right in saying that kart, or certainly one that you had in your early years, is one that you've since acquired back and done a restoration project on? Tell us about that.
Yeah, I have. It's back to when it first was. It wasn't actually that kart, but it was the kart that I actually drove on the Have a Go day. Okay. So the kart we actually bought was a different kart, but the one that we bought
the very first one
is the one that I drove first, flat out the first kart I drove. So from John Ingham from New Zealand, who have actually become very good friends with our family. So times have changed and all that sort of stuff, and we're still close. And to be able to get that kart and put a bit more chrome stuff on it and make it look real nice is very cool.
That said, is there still a fair bit of authenticity as it was, and what sort of chassis is it and things like that?
Yeah, so it's a Kiwi kart. So back in the day, you basically only ran a Kiwi kart in cadets. It was just, that's what it was. And they're still getting made today, and it's got the same fuel tank I ran. It's actually the same motor. We've managed to get a lot of the things together. Dad couldn't help himself. He had to chrome the axle. He had to chrome the brake disc so we wouldn't drive it. But it's very cool.
I want to know if you can share the yarn with us about the time your mum and dad went looking at a new Audi and you and Sammy were in the dealership. What? That's her fault. Yeah. What happened?
Okay, so I was so scared. I'm still scared about the story. But we're in this Giltrap Prestige. I think it was Giltrap. Yeah, it was in Hamilton. Audi dealership. And we were in a car up the top, and I think it was a little Skoda used car, and we were jumping in it. It was actually a manual. We used to have a habit of turning the wheel and playing with the gear stick and whatever, but we didn't know this one was manual. And just so happened, Dad had parked his brand new Club Sport. It was only about 3 or 4 days old, down the bottom of this hill, and little do we know, Sam's dropped the handbrake for some goddamn reason. I've popped it into neutral, and the thing's just fired down the hill straight into the door of Dad's car. The dealership were amazing about it. There was damage on the car, damage on Dad's car. They pulled it back. It was bad. We got out of the car, ran separate directions, blamed each other. Dad was so angry though. This is the best part of the story. He was so angry that he put us in the car. He's like, "Get in the car, rah, rah." He's like, he's so angry with you. He slammed the door that hard, it popped the dent out, and there's no scratches or anything. It just popped the dent out. So we actually didn't get in much trouble, and the dealership were really good about it.
Fantastic. So the karting kind of becomes a staple for your family in many respects, doesn't it, mate? And was there a point along the way where you thought, this is me, this is my life, this is what I want to do, and who were the influences in that regard?
Yeah, it's hard to pinpoint a time, because I felt like my career in karting went up and down like a yo-yo. I feel like we started off and I really loved it, and I started winning some titles in New Zealand. Then our family made the big change to Australia and lived over there. We had, as the business was struggling in that time, Mum and Dad had to take some sacrifices. So there was a point there where I didn't race for like 10 months. 03, 04, 05, I hardly got any racing in. So
did you lose the passion, or were you hungrier than ever because you missed it?
I was hungrier than ever. I remember as a young kid, you'd wake up morning of a race day way better than you would on a school day. So I remember, just with it sucked, and I remember crying, not being able to race and whatever, and it was one of those things that was quite tough as a family, and for Mum and Dad especially. So it took a bit of a lull, and then it came back on probably 06. Dad basically said, "Look, business is going a little bit better. I'm going to send you away with a team," and we got part of a team there, and basically it was like an arrive and drive thing. I had a mechanic and stuff, and worked with some really good people like Dale Verrill, Robbie Morton, that massive people in go-karting that helped me a lot, and really taught me the things that I learned then was what I know today, and still helps me today. And I think probably around the 06 mark, when we branched off and did that, was probably when I realised, this is what I want to do.
Those foundations, mate, are so important to lots of sports people when you talk to them about this kind of stuff. Invariably, too, so are the influences of other stars, athletes, and Murph was one you had come across. What sort of influence did he have, and how did you meet him first?
Yeah, so we first met him at Pukekohe in 2001. I was a deer to headlights. I was very nervous and
What, you didn't talk to him?
I couldn't, I was just frozen. And Dad was actually just become the president of the Hamilton Car Club back then. And he asked Murph to come out. They were planning a big build on the track, upgrade to national standards so we could run the nationals in North Island or whatever. And he asked Murph to come out to the track and open it for us, which he did. Dad surprised me and asked Murph to stay with us that weekend, which he did. And so you think an 8-year-old, his heroes basically turned up to his doorstep with bags and stuff, and I'm just like, what the hell? And I remember just little things like he's walking downstairs to the guest room and I'd just yell, hey Murph, and I just wouldn't say anything. I'd just look at him. And he probably don't remember that, but I certainly remember it. And he's been a great guy for me throughout my career, and it's been unreal.
You mentioned your mum and dad there before, mate, and even the tougher times business-wise. I mean, they've been great supporters of yours. He's had success in the transportation game, obviously. Am I right in saying that you learnt how to drive trucks, or you could move them around the yard? Is that correct? And did you have a proper license, or you just learnt there?
No, I learnt when I was very young. I actually used to warm the trucks up for Dad before he started going at about 4 a.m. I used to come out in the trucks with him, and because obviously trucks you have to pump the airbags up before they go. So I'd warm up every truck for all the drivers, set them on a rev and get them all right. And I feel like I'm driving them that stage. And then as I got older and I could reach the pedals better, I started driving them and just driving around the yard, parking them, whatever. So I guess I learned how to back a trailer pretty early. And I had a great teacher in my old man for that.
No near misses?
No, there's a couple of them. Yeah, there's definitely one. Sometimes I didn't tell Dad about them. He probably knows now.
Tell me about the decision for you to largely focus on tin top racing, mate, and that was one that came with, I guess, a bit of emotion attached to it for the family. A lot of very successful Kiwis have gone down the open wheel path, but you fundamentally didn't go that way.
No. We had a friend in go-karts, Michael McHugh, who went Formula Ford racing, unfortunately passed away in a Formula Ford accident. Dad knew his family very well through the presidency at Hamilton Car Club, and basically from that day on he was like, no, I don't want you racing Formula Ford. Eventually we ended up racing a couple of races in Formula Ford, but that's where we sort of went down the tin top route. I don't really talk about it that much. It's more it's nice to talk about it from time to time, but it's one of those things where I think just we respected the family and we felt that we could go another route and still be able to be successful without going the Formula Ford way. So
what was the first race car, and can you remember how you felt and where you were and what that sensation was like? Yeah,
it was actually out of all places, it was a Mini Cooper, and it was, a QR, had a crack in that, and
Queensland Raceway.
Queensland Raceway, and I tried to in the car. I remember driving out and trying to heel toe, and I was freaking myself out because I didn't know how to heel toe. Just straight out of go-karts.
How old were you?
15.
Okay.
And I remember going out to the track and I was like freaking, and I got in the car and basically all of a sudden I just knew how to heel toe when I got on the track. It was just, it was crazy, and something that I'll never forget that moment. But yeah, it was surreal.
That's front wheel drive, low horsepower, but I mean it brings a smile to your face even now. So
I've said to many people I'd love to have another crack in that thing because I was very slow back then, but I reckon I'd have another crack and be all right.
Was there a grand plan? Did you go, okay, because I mean obviously you tackled successfully the Super Touring Championship here in New Zealand, and then you went on to do other things in Australia, which we'll cover. But was there we've got to tick this box first, and was there a grand plan? Yeah,
look, it came obviously the Formula Ford thing didn't work out, so I had to do a couple of races to do my license. I had 4 races, and then we jumped into the Dunlop series. But the plan was obviously to try and get to V8 Supercars the quickest, and but the right way, and be prepared for it, because a lot of people we've seen over the years, they're not prepared for it to get the main series, and I felt like we did. And many supporters along the way, including Fujitsu Air Conditioning, who basically they sunk a massive amount of my career, from go-karting all the way up. For me, the plan was to do 3 years in Dunlop series and then try and search for a drive. But the problem with Dunlop Series is there's only 7 rounds, so we needed to find a way to go racing another way, maybe a little bit in New Zealand or whatever. That's when in 2010 we decided to go the New Zealand V8 route, and we were lucky again. Obviously Fujitsu put a lot of money into our racing in Australia, so we were able to come back and put a lot of it. Mum and Dad put a lot on the line for me to race in New Zealand. We ran our own team, we did all that sort of stuff, and managed to win the championship in the end. And I think the New Zealand racing was a massive add to the plan that had already been set. If we didn't have that, I think I wouldn't be where I am today.
The first V8 supercar drive, how did it go? Where was the test? Was it at Queensland Raceway as well? And was it Stone Brothers Falcon? I'm trying to remember.
Yep. It was James Courtney's old Falcon from 2008. 2009, December 17. I remember it like it was yesterday. Quite a hot day, straight after a ride day. It was a test day for everyone. And had a crack. Again, I was worried about the heel-toe thing, but we came out all right. And the boys, for a bit of a giggle, put an L plate on the back of it and sent me on my way. What
were you told before you went out in terms of, there's such a different beast to drive, but admittedly you'd done super touring in New Zealand, so there's a level of grounding. But what were you told before you went out? What were you told to expect? And were you given, X amount of laps? And what were you hoping to walk away with? Yeah, look, it was, I guess, an initiation into potentially being part of the Dunlop Series the year after. I was told just to go enjoy it and feel the car, go easy. I only went off once, which I was proud of. And that was really towards the end of the day. And what I didn't know was that there was a time that I had to achieve. I think it was like a 13.8 or something that day, and that was basically what enabled Ross and Jimmy to believe that I was able to do it. They basically put everything in place after that day. But I'll never forget the feeling, just half throttle and then just full throttle. Was just like crazy, and compared to a Mini Cooper, it was pretty full on. It's a great point that you raise, and I've spoken to a couple of people about this, because the car really comes to life, mate, doesn't it? When you give it welly like that, when you switch the pit lane speed limiter off, it comes to life in this joyous manner. So for someone like you, a proper racer who'd been aspiring to do that, it must have been surreal. Yeah, I watched so many videos too, onboard videos at Queensland Raceway, footwork videos, just laps and laps and laps. I was an encyclopedia for supercars, honestly, and just infatuated with the sport. And when I switched that pit speed limiter off, it was just unreal, and the feeling that I got, and it was very cool. So you go on to ultimately win the Dunlop Series in 2012, mate. Huge achievement. And if memory serves, there were some great names in the series back then. So, it's the second tier to the main game, the last rung, if you like, before you get there. But a hard battle with some now big names in the game, wasn't it? Yeah, and for me it was, so I was at Stone Brothers, Nick Percat was at Walkinshaws, or HRT, Scott Pye at Triple Eight, and Chaz Moss at FPR. So it's all guys that now are in the main game pretty well, won races in the main game, and it was just an immense year. And I think it really cemented ourselves within supercars that, and a lot of people still talk about it as one of the best years in Dunlop Series for a long time. And the competitiveness of it was unreal. I reckon I had probably the 4th best car. I think we were definitely probably punching above our weight, but I think we just kept our nose clean all year and learned a lot over the 2 years prior, and we came home with the bickies, so it was very cool. You didn't get a huge amount of time to let that sink in, to enjoy that, because you got an early call up to the main game for your good mate Alex Premer, who was not too well, with Gary Rogers. Tell us about that. Yeah, see, I didn't know Alex that much at the time, but I thought he was a good bloke after he let me drive his car that night. But yeah, he was obviously a bit of a bad way. But I remember with Gary, we had done the deal prior to that race with Gary, and I asked for the 33 car for the go-kart number thing, and he came up on the podium and said, "Hey, why don't you drive the 33 car?" I'm like, "Oh, awesome, no dramas." And I was like, "All right, sweet as." And I got back on the podium. He's like, "Make sure you don't drink champagne." I was like, "Oh, that's weird." And then he's like, "Oh, so you're thinking this is next year with the 33?" Yeah, I'm thinking this is with the 33 for next year, for 2013. And I was like, "Okay, no dramas." Got on the celebrate. I was in awe. I was just going crazy. And then he's still there after the podium. I was like, "Hey, Gaz, how are you?" He's like, "No, you right to drive my car in an hour?" I'm like,
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I couldn't believe it. And they had source stickers from SBR. There was McLaughlin on the door when I got there. It was the quickest seat fitting I've ever had in my life. Basically just jumped in the car and drove it. I was so nervous. I didn't want to make an idiot out of myself. But, I just went out there and enjoyed it. Unfortunately, I got caught for wheel spinning in the pit stop, which hurt me a lot. Got a drive-through penalty, which was one of my first in supercars in my first race. Finished a lap down in 17th, but it was a very cool day.
Gary Rogers, who you would then drive for, as you said, on a full-time basis in 2013, he's a real stalwart of the game and straight shooting sort of guy. How did you find him initially to work with, and what were the learnings when you get to the big league and you're with a good team and that style of manager or team owner?
Yeah, I was very intimidated by Gary. He comes in with a very strong attitude that, probably the driver, is on the same level with everyone else, which is great. And I guess in my first year in the main series, it was like, I made it, but I was still on the floor, which was very cool. And he made me work and finish my apprenticeship, which was the best thing I've ever done.
Which is, just for the people listening?
That's a sheet metal fabricator. So I was working and building cars and fixing mine and Alex's crashes when we crashed our cars. But
which is Gary's way.
Gary's way, yeah. But no, he was, at first, it took me a bit to warm up to him, but once I think he understood that, this kid's not too bad. The contract had a clause in there that, if I didn't perform well, I could be gone at the end of the year. So I had to perform. He gave me a great car. The guys gave me a great car, and we won on one of our first races at Australian Grand Prix. And basically from that point on, he put a contract on the table for the next 3 years, and we got on with it.
This youngster is being compared already to the great Craig Lowndes. Look out! There's a new kid in town in the V8 Supercars. His name is Scott McLaughlin. He's on the champions list.
That car, which you would ultimately win, I think, at Pukekohe with, correct me if I'm wrong here, the win, of course, at the Grand Prix was non-championship. So you then you become the youngest race winner in championship terms at home at Pukekohe. I mean, mental, mate. That was crazy.
Yeah, it's unreal, A lot of people actually forget about that Grand Prix one, but yeah, the one at Pukekohe was unreal. And, anytime you get to win there, whether it's this year or whether it's in 2013, it was so special. And I walked in that place, no one knew who I was. I could walk in without signing an autograph, and no one was standing at the back end of my garage. And then the next day, walking in, I couldn't get through. People wanted to know who I was and signing autographs. It was just a massive transition in my life.
Fantastic. That car, as you and I sit here, I don't know if you've seen socials today, but literally today, an ad has popped up for the sale of that car. It's come up for sale. Not every driver aspires to doing that. I know Jamie Whincup has gone and bought a supercar back. Is that something, may not have to be that car, but is that something that Scott McLaughlin would desire to have in his garage one day? Yeah,
look, we've got the Super Tourer from when the family owned that. I'd love to own the DVS car that I won the 2012 championship in. The 2013 car, I'd love to own that. But yeah, I'll earn a few more Vickies first and see if I can get that. But look, yeah, for sure, I'm a big collector. I love collecting stuff, model cars, merchandise, suits, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, that might have to be put on hold.
Well, go back just a fraction here. That's cool that you've kept the Super Tourer. Yeah. What was that thing like to drive? And tell us about the emotional attachment to it.
Yeah, that was really cool. That was our first sort of family foray. Yeah, Commodore. Yeah, it was a Holden. So when I started driving for Volvo, I couldn't race it anymore, so it was quite annoying. But we basically built that team as a family, and Dad drove the truck to all the races, and Mum did all the cooking for the team, and had some really good people like Steve Brow, who used to be the technical director for Supercars, who works for my old man in Australia, and he was our main mechanic, and a couple of mechanics from Australia came with us as well, so it was very cool. And yeah, just our first championship. We actually won that championship before the round at Homebush, where I won the 2012 DVS championship. And yeah, so look, it has a lot of connections. It was my first national championship. It was my first one with my family. So yeah, we kept it, and we've literally parked it in the garage, and it's as raced. Hasn't touched it. We could put fuel in it and go again. Probably have to charge a battery. But yeah, the car to drive was very cool. I'm very sad about that category, because I think it could have been something massive.
Yes.
especially in New Zealand, and
it's cost effective. It looked good. I mean, you could for the
absolutely. Great tyre, all that stuff, and we had some good fans. And Murph was racing it, a hero, and we had a great format, but there's so much politics going on, and it was just so uncalled for, and we just had to get on with it. And unfortunately, the place went bankrupt. But the car to drive was fast, a lot of aero, great tyre, good brakes. We were almost faster than a supercar around Pookie, and it was very cool. The only bad thing about it was fly-by-wire, so you had to be so easy on the throttle because the first little bit would just jump out at you, and it was just it was tough to drive.
More with Scott McLaughlin in a moment. In this series, I speak with some of the most passionate designers, collectors, riders and drivers I know, like Toby Price, who won the most gruelling race on the planet, Dakar.
You run 9,500 kilometres over the 14-day period. Most of the time you're up at least 3 o'clock in the morning to be on the bike at 4. Our biggest day we have is 1,100 kilometres in a day, so it's like that's riding a motorcycle from Brisbane to Sydney.
Listen to the full episode with the first Aussie to win the Dakar, Toby Price, here on Rusty's Garage.
Formula E, a class of automotive racing that uses only electric-powered cars that look similar to the Formula One cars, just a lot quieter.
You mentioned the Volvo before. Gary Rogers gets the deal to run Volvos in supercars. You may not remember this. You actually took me for a ride around Sydney Olympic Park in it, and you let me pluck the gears when we were, which I loved. It was a unique beast, wasn't it? How did it compare to drive to the Commodore you'd been used to, and then even now to the Falcon that you're racing?
That was 2016, David. I took you.
Correct.
Yeah, I remember that. It was. I remember when he told me about it, I was like, oh my God, I'm a bit nervous about it because I'd seen Nissan come into the sport and Mercedes and all that, and they were really struggling. But it turned out to be complete opposite. Best thing for my career to date. But that was unreal. It had so much power, so much torque, so you could race, you could run in such a different gear compared to a lot of people and look after the tyre, and we had great downforce as well. So that was an absolute beast of a car and the sound of it was immense.
The sound of what you had to say at Adelaide too is something that people talk about to this day. I love it, mate. You were quite worried about swearing and stuff at the time. I could tell that, but it showed raw, real emotion. The words, correct me if I'm wrong here, was something like, I
don't know what happened on there. I just plucked her in first, gave some jam. Sorry.
But it just showed how much it meant to you that year.
Yeah, that was, I think, because I just seen how hard the guys had been working behind the scenes to build the car, and just to take it to Jamie and beat him fair and square was really cool. And we've had massive battles since then, but that still rates as one of the best. And the interviewers part, I just thought Barrett's was my mate, and I'm not a potty mouth, but I do swear like everyone. I'm human, and it was just what I would say to my best mate, and probably just got carried away. I'm a bit more professional now, but I know how to ring it in, but it's still in the background. I've got that fun part.
I love it. It showed real genuine character, mate, and clearly how you felt at the time. You would make the decision in career terms to ultimately leave Gary's, and you're now with Shell Helix Racing, Dick Johnson Racing, Team Penske, an amazing outfit in the sport. Clear up some things for me here in the timeline. Someone said to me, and this may not be right, but someone said to me that the discussions regarding maybe could you play with that outfit may have gone back as far as 2014, mate. Did you contact Tim Cindric that far back, and what were those early conversations like?
Yeah, so I went to New Hampshire for the NASCAR race, and I met up with Marcus Ambrose, and this was before Penske was in the sport, but I knew that was all happening, and I've always been a fan of going to NASCAR and having a look and potentially maybe one day driving one. And race conditions, and it's always been a dream, and you got to have dreams outside of the sport. And I spoke to Marcus about it, and he said, look, Penske are looking at coming in the sport, maybe give Tim Cindric just an email just to give him your details. He's a great guy to have on your side. So I emailed after the New Hampshire race. I was a bit nervous. I emailed Tim Cindric, And
You remember the email?
Yep, and I actually found it the other day and I sent it to Tim and we laugh about it now. But, you know, I wrote it up and I actually said I was coming over in November. I hadn't booked the flights or anything, but I said, look, this is my details. I'd love to meet up with you in Mooresville and have a look at the shop with you, or whether you're coming to the Supercars or not, but I would love one day maybe we can talk about a NASCAR thing, or this could be 10 years or so. But just here's my details if you'd ever need someone to drive a road course. Nothing happened, and basically 2 days later he responded and said, yeah, keen to meet up with you, know who you are, or make sure you come over in November and we'll catch up and we'll make a time, let me know when you get here. Booked my flights that day, said I was actually going to Vegas for a kart race, which I was, but I bypassed to go to Charlotte for a little bit. Obviously doing this in good faith with Gary. I didn't tell him that I was going there to meet with Penske, but this was all before the Supercars thing, and Tim really didn't give it away that they were coming in, but he said, look, if we ever did, you know, obviously we may want to have you on board, but he never really gave me anything and didn't push me away either. So it was just nice to meet him, and then from that point on, when it all got announced, we always stayed in contact with numbers and texting, and yeah, so, and then basically the Volvo deal was getting pretty bit worried and whatever, and you know, I was pretty happy at GRM, family team, all that sort of stuff, but I knew I had to extend myself somewhere, and Tim got in contact, and you know, the rest is history.
Did the whole NASCAR thing, going to Mooresville and seeing all that stuff, that blow you away?
Oh, unreal. Seeing, you know, the 400-something people on the floor at Penske, and you know, just seeing the Indy 500 trophies lined up. You know, at the time it was like 15, I think, and you know, it was unreal. And I haven't actually been back to Charlotte since then, so I'd like to go back there, and I'm going to try and play in there, get there in January.
So Roger later on decides to play in the sport, and the dots would ultimately join that you would be a part of that outfit. You know, wonderful new chapter for you. Did the captain, I mean, he's an automotive industry icon, motor racing legend in terms of what he's achieved as a team owner. What was the phone call like? And can you remember what he said?
Yeah, I remember seeing the number +1, and I was like, well, this could be important. So I answered it, and I had Tim's number, and he said, yeah, Scott's Roger Penske, and basically this is a little bit down the line when we had been in discussions, but Roger's always the final say in regards to his drivers, I'm guessing. So he gave me a call and just said, you know, this is what we're about, and all that sort of thing. I would love to have you on our team. And it was a very short, sharp, and yeah, it was just very, very surreal, and something that I'll never forget. But it was funny when this is a lot before this, but 2015 at New Zealand was the first time I actually met Roger, and he came out and he actually sent me an email, and I absolutely crapped my pants when he sent it. I was like, because I didn't actually have my phone turned on, and I actually missed the email, but he came and saw me, and he was like, oh, how'd you like the shop? And I'm like, I was ducking for cover because I hadn't told anyone I'd been there or anything like that, and I was like, oh, it was all right, let's go talk over here. But from that day on, he was amazing. And then, yeah, obviously when discussions got serious about joining DJR Team Penske, it was crazy to be a part of it. So they pair up, or it's a marriage with Dick Johnson Racing, another an Aussie icon of racing, and you get to race the famous number 17. That's very cool. Yeah, it was cool. You know, I remember talking to Tim about it, just, you know, potentially being able to drive the 17, and just to be a part of that team and seeing the history, what's gone on, the True Blue Racer, and Dick's past, to go to Bathurst now with number 17. It's such a massive number within the sport, and Dick's so proud of it. The whole family's proud of it, and it makes me very proud that they are happy with a bloke like me representing them. Huge responsibility that comes with all that, mate. A big organisation, winning culture, the Penske way that they talk about. How has that shaped you? How has that changed you, do you think? Look, I think the first year I took it on board probably a little bit too much. I probably wasn't myself, and not that I wasn't myself, but I was just like a little bit more too corporate, and I put too much pressure on myself. There's so many people watching me, but sort of sat down and spoke to Ryan about it, and also Tim, and said, look, I can still be who you want me to be, and for your corporate partners and all that sort of stuff, but I also want to have a little joke and and enjoy it a bit more. And they never stopped me from doing that, but I stopped myself, and they've been great with me, and teaching me the ways. A couple of things I've said wrong, or said a few things that I probably shouldn't have said, and done some things I shouldn't have done. But it's not I don't get a clip around the ears. It's more just a
guidance.
Yeah, guidance, and it's very, it's just an awesome, mature way of going about it.
And McLaughlin comes to the line. Yes! A 2-minute 3.8. They've gone berserk at Shell V8 Racing. That is off the scale.
In 2003, we talked about him earlier in the podcast.
Yeah.
Your idol, Greg Murphy, did a thing that is affectionately known as the Lap of the Gods, the first driver to go sub 207 at Bathurst. Nearly 15 years later, you go into the 203s with the modern take, if you like, on the Lap of the Gods. What was that lap like? Do you remember it like film in your mind? And talk us through that.
Yeah, I've watched so many replays. I do. Look, it was just one of those days where the time, the temperature of the track, everything was perfect. And if you look back at 03, we had very similar weather conditions. If you look at it, like the sun was coming down, it was daylight savings, it was all happening. And I'll never forget it. The lap was basically perfect. There's a little misdemeanor at the top that, I could have maybe got a 10th or half a tenth more in the car. But that was basically it. There was a car that basically had a 3.8 in it, and we got it. We got out of it.
Tell me about the fact that you're in now, as we sit here, an epic battle, you and Shane Van Gisbergen for the title, mate, with one round to go. And I mean, it was really 12 months ago, an epic battle with Jamie Whincup. Are there learnings from Newcastle and just the final part of last year's championship that you take with you and that has built Scott McLaughlin for this 2018 final?
Yeah, I think, it's just not over to the fat lady sings. It sounds simple, but I'm for sure, I just feel so much more comfortable about myself and about this position compared to last year. I felt very, new to it and quite intimidated by the whole thing. And again, I put too much pressure on myself, and I asked too much of myself in the positions I was put in. Everything was good basically till Sunday. For me, now I just sit here and I'm just enjoying it. I just go, what will be, and I've just got to go out there and do the best I possibly can. And if that's winning the race, that's perfect. That's like yesterday. If it's second on Saturday, at Pukekohe, that's all I could have done, and I was happy with that. Apart from the post race stuff, but. I'm not putting over pressure on myself, and I think that's putting me in a good state of mind.
You win, as you say, the Jason Richards Memorial Trophy just yesterday at Pukekohe. 110,000 fans over the weekend in New Zealand. Your native New Zealand, huge. Yeah. So that's mega on the Sunday. There was that stuff on Saturday where you got parked in the pit lane and with your rival Shane. How did that make you feel, and how did you deal with that overnight? Yeah.
Oh, look, I just went to bed. I know he tries to do this sort of stuff with others and whatever, and I feel like I'm smarter than that. I don't need to get into all that stuff. Whether he says it's a mistake or not, whatever. But for me, we're gracious in defeat, humble in victory. And, that's what I've tried to base my whole moral of the weekend on. And I felt that's someone, for the Jason Richards Trophy, that's what he stood for. And I told Shane at the press conference, I'll get you back tomorrow. And we did, and I'm very proud of it.
I want to just go back and touch on the win on Sunday at Pukekohe. You climbed the fence like Elio Castroneves. What was that like, and how much did it mean to you?
Oh, it was unreal. Something that I'll never forget. I've always wanted to get out of the car there and fist pump and whatever and do a big skid, and I certainly did. And I was like, stuff it. Penske driver does it. I'm going to go jump on the fence. So, it was very cool and something that I'll never forget.
You are about to jump behind the wheel of the Mustang. Everyone is very excited about this for the 2019 season. What's the energy been like among the team and the build and all that sort of stuff?
I think it's just a fresh start. I think it's a time for us now to just chill out and not chill out. Originality, like being able to work together as a squad. We worked with the FGX. It was something as an engineering group that we basically got put together at the start of 17 and had to try and figure out a car that we hadn't designed. what we've done now with a homologation team, we've been able to build and design and build a car that what we could do to our ideas. Whether they're good or not remains to be seen, I think. But from the looks of it, looks really cool.
The whole project is happening while you're trying to win a championship as well, isn't it?
Exactly. There's so much going on. It's flat out with design work, building it, taking guys off my car to do it. It's a bit of a background. That's why I'm so proud of everyone, because we've been able to just continually be still in the championship hunt, but build up hopefully a absolute rocket of a race car.
A couple of final ones to finish here now. Where were you when you got your first car, and what was that first road car?
It's a Holden Barina.
A Holden Barina?
Yeah. And it was actually a deal that I did with a Holden team, the Holden dealership.
What colour?
It was bright blue, and it had no guts whatsoever. And I crashed it within 400 k's. Yeah. So, there was a lesson learned from that.
Car that you'd love to have in the garage one day. As we sit here, we're recording at the moment at Giltrap Automotive in Auckland, which is, this is a dream building in here. The kind of cars and memorabilia are phenomenal. Is there something in here that's caught your eye that you would love to one day own?
I think part of their family, it's a Porsche GT3R or RS, one of those two. I love them. I love a Porsche, and I think they're a really cool car.
You're getting married, Carly, American.
Yep.
When you're in the States, who does the driving? And do you sit there and if she's driving, do you monitor her drive? Are you a good passenger? What are you like?
No, I'm a horrendous passenger. I struggle. And she'd be, she knows that she's probably not the best driver in the world, but she does a pretty good job. I drive a lot. And even in America now, I drive all the time. Yeah.
Different kind of driving. You love your golf.
Yep.
And you're pretty, I know Paul Gow, former professional, has given you some tips and things.
Yep.
Is that your escape?
Yeah, for sure. It's one thing I love going to do, whether it's the driving range or just going to play 9 holes or whatever in the afternoon. It's certainly something I love doing. I'm not amazing at it, but I'm not bad at it either. I have a crack and see how we go.
Right. Any road habits that annoy you from fellow motorists?
Oh yeah, sit in the fast lane and braking when merging onto a freeway. That is just my pet hate. Yeah, it chokes everyone up and it's so dangerous.
Let's finish with arguably your greatest fan, mate, and we're talking about your late Gran, who was phenomenal. I'm told, firstly, that when you were about age 8, you drove her around the go-kart track in a road car. You could barely see over the steering wheel. Is that right?
Yeah, it was actually her and my nana who was out there on the weekend. But I drove around the Hamilton kart. This is when they were rebuilding it, and I was just driving the trailer around, but I was taking them for a little lap. And I remember they used to do the Kmart inside line back in the day, and I was pretending I was doing that with Murph and handing over to Scafey in the next lap. And it was something I'll never forget. But Graham was a massive support along with my nana, and she always rides with me. But I promised her before she passed away that I'd win a Bathurst and I'd win a championship. So hopefully in the next couple of weeks we can tick one of those off.
Absolutely. I know her room in the latter part of life, mate, was dedicated to you. It was covered in posters and things.
Yeah, it was a full wall. It was unreal. It was a huge wall as well. It was posters everywhere. There's photos of my sister and myself. Every trophy I won in New Zealand, I took to her house. Where she was in a home, and basically just put it on the mantelpiece. But she was an unreal supporter, and
she rides with you now, mate, even on the helmet, I think.
Yeah. So she's up the top of the helmet where the air vent is. You don't see her, but she's there, and it always will be. And she was one of my best friends, so it was a good thing.
Fantastic to chat with you, mate. We wish you all the very best. It's going to be an epic battle, and all the very best when you get married. I'm told you don't even know what's happening with your Bucks night, mate. You could be going anywhere. You may even need a passport. Is that right?
They're saying that. They're giving me enough. I said book the date, and I'm there. But I don't want to know, because you sort the activities out and we'll work out the rest.
It's been fantastic to talk cars, and we wish you continued success. Thank you, mate. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Thanks.
Rusty's Garage is written and presented by me, Greg Rust. Series producer and editor is Alex Mitchell. Audio production by Darcy Thompson.
listener.